So we start with the prayer. All ready? Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Swamine Tapaharine.
Swamine Tapaharine.
So, Swamiji is in Kerala. I told you yesterday that he came to Kodangallur. In those days it was called Cranganore by the Britishers. Kodangallur has a very famous Devi temple. Swamiji had heard about it. He wanted to visit the temple. He had only a shoulder bag with a change of clothes, a couple of books, and one kamandalu for water. He saw a huge tree in front of the temple with a platform. He kept his kamandalu and the bag on the platform. He went to the Arabian Sea, had a dip, came back, changed his dress, and the old wet dress he hung on the tree for drying. Then he wanted to enter the temple. He came to the door of the temple. A priest came out. He asked him, "Are you a Hindu or a Muslim?" Swamiji replied, "I am a Hindu." "What is your name?" "Satchidananda." And Swamiji was asked a strange question which had so far not been asked anywhere in India. "What was your caste before you took sannyas?" Swamiji replied, "Kshatriya." "Shantam papam, Shantam papam. How dare you take sannyas as a Kshatriya? You will roast in hell, but thou shalt not enter the temple." Swamiji was taken aback. He had never seen anything like that before. Then he remembered what he had heard in Mysore, that Kerala in those days was a very orthodox place. And mind you, all the temples in those days were properties of the royal families. They were not public, they were private. So Swamiji came back to the platform, sat there, went on meditating on Devi. Then he heard the sound of musical instruments, the famous Kerala Panchavadyam. And the musicians came in sight. Behind them were two huge flattish umbrellas. And below the umbrellas walked two people richly dressed, obviously the princes of the local royal family. And there were many other people behind them. The princess saw Swamiji sitting on the platform, got attracted to him. There was so much of tejas on the face of Swamiji, so much of brightness. They came and wanted to talk to Swamiji. The eternal problem of India. Today things are not so bad thanks to Doordarshan. Hindi can be understood throughout the country. Even the Bombay Lafda Hindi can be understood. You know Bombay Lafda Hindi? Apun apun, apun karela, apun jayala. Even that can be understood in India all over. In those days, the princes were at a loss. They didn't know what to speak to this man, in which language. English, they knew English, but they never expected a sannyasi to know English. So they decided to take a chance. They spoke to Swamiji in chaste Sanskritam. Swamiji replied in equally chaste Sanskrit. The princes were very happy. They sat down next to Swamiji. 1 hour long, they had a discussion on Advaita Vedanta. That is the home of Advaita Vedanta. Hardly 30 kilometers away is that village Kaladi, the birthplace of Adi Shankara. So naturally there is a place where Advaita was consolidated by Adi Shankara. At the end of 1 hour of talking, the princess requested Swamiji to come with them into the temple because the temple belonged to them. Swamiji said, no, I am happy here. He didn't tell them that he had been denied permission. I'll sit here, no problem. After some time, the princess went away. The whole day Swamiji spent there. The temple people gave him prasad. They didn't want him to starve. Next morning, Swamiji again went to the Arabian Sea, had a dip, changed his clothing, and was sitting at his place back in the platform. Again he heard the same musical instruments. Again the 2 flattish umbrellas. And this time there were 2 young ladies below the umbrellas, accompanied by a large number of women. Swamiji was taken aback. I have told you earlier, in his travel he had rarely seen women outdoors. All the women he had met were indoors. Now here are 2 young ladies, richly dressed, publicly walking in open in the eyes of other people. The 2 young ladies came straight to Swamiji and started chattering away with him in Sanskrit. Swamiji was taken aback even more. He never expected these girls to speak Sanskritam. He asked them, how do you know Sanskritam? Oh, Swamiji, don't you know? In the royal family, everybody has to learn Sanskritam. Not only royal family. Most of the educated people in Kerala were scholars in Sanskritam, and incidentally, for the benefit of those who do not come from Kerala, it is they people have preserved the purity of Sanskritam. They have a very peculiar way of teaching accent in Sanskritam. You know, Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is the way we learn by imitation. They have a very peculiar method. Whenever it is Udatta, they raise their head. The teacher. Whenever it is Anudatta, he lowers the head. Whenever it is the Swarita middle note, shakes the head to and fro. You know that? Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu. You people laugh, huh? There is another technique. Another technique is Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu. One YAC batch, I was demonstrating this. Like you people, they also laughed. One girl became angry. She said, don't laugh. My father is a Sanskrit teacher. That is the way he teaches children at home. Don't laugh. We Keralites are very proud of it. Isn't it? They have preserved the purity of Sanskritam. Otherwise, Sanskritam would have vanished from the face of India long, long ago. Take a very simple matter. In Sanskrita alphabet, you have Pa, Pha, Ba, Bha, Ma. Take a word Safal. Safal means successful. How do the North Indians pronounce it? Safal. It is a Persian accent. By this time, otherwise, the whole of Sanskritam would have been recited exactly like Persian. But they preserved the tradition. That is why Swamiji wrote in a letter from Thiruvananthapuram to Ramakrishnananda. My dear Shashi, it is high time the women of India got educated. And he made a very, very famous statement. I don't know whether you people agree with me or not. Let me see. The salvation of India lies in the education of women. Do you agree? You must. If you don't, then female chauvinists will pounce upon you. It is a fact. 50 years ago, if Prashanti Kutiram were here, and I would be giving this lecture, none of you would be here. No ladies were being allowed. Even now, in San Jose, there is a giant temple. You go to the giant temple, men are on one side, women are on the other side, and as soon as the pravachana starts, a screen is drawn between them. I have seen that. We were in Muncie, a Jewish settlement. We caught a bus to go to New York. My daughter Savita was with me. Naturally, the two of us sat side by side. The conductor came and said, "No, you have to go to the ladies' side." I said, "Okay, like Prashanti Kutiram." Okay, she is sitting on the ladies' side. But as soon as the bus started, a screen was drawn. Men should not see women, women should not see men. There are pockets of orthodoxy even in the United States. I don't know how the situation is in Kerala. It must have improved a lot from that time onwards. There have been too many agitations, and now entry to the temple is no longer that difficult. When I first went to Thiruvananthapuram temple, I was asked to come wearing a dhoti and no baniyan, nothing. But the last time I went there, I was told, "Don't bother, you come as it is, don't even have to change your pants, hire a dhoti, wear it over the pants." They have compromised that much. You can imagine how orthodox Kerala was at the time of Swamiji. Then he had a long chat with the girls. He was very happy. After spending a couple of days more in Kodangallur, he made his way gradually to Thiruvananthapuram, Trivandrum. This is a photo taken in December 1882 in Trivandrum. You can see he is wearing the safa with the tail hanging over the left shoulder. In Trivandrum, he met a good number of highly educated people with whom he stayed. In the book Reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda, most of these people have given their memories of Swami Vivekananda. It gives you an idea of how the people of Trivandrum welcomed him with open arms. Then he expressed a desire to go to the Ananta Padmanabha Swami temple, which was again a property, personal property of the local kings, the Varmans, Varma family. The drama continued. It repeated itself. Are you a Hindu or a Muslim? I am a Hindu. What is your name? Sachidananda. What was your caste before you took sannyas? Kshatriya. Shantam papam, shantam papam. You will roast in hell, but thou shalt not enter the temple. This time Swamiji was very upset. And in a letter to Ramakrishnananda, he cries, "When are we going to abolish the caste system in India? It is eating into our entrails." From Trivandrum, Swamiji started walking towards the southernmost tip of Bharata Mata, Kanyakumari. Kanyakumari is in Tamil Nadu state. Nagarkoil also is in Tamil Nadu, but it is a border. People in Kanyakumari and Nagarkoil, they speak both Malayalam and Tamil, like Palkad people. And there he visited the temple of Kanyakumari. How many of you have visited this temple? I rule you out because you are local people. How many of you? Beautiful, isn't it? The image is not very tall, short image. See how beautiful she looks. Who is she? Kanyakumari. I have told you already the story of how Sati was reborn as Parvati. Parvati wanted to marry Shiva. She came here to meditate on Shiva, to do tapasya on Shiva. In her memory, there is a temple, Kanyakumari. There is a virgin goddess. Swamiji was thrilled when he stood before her. Why? He remembered his experience of Dakshineshwar. Ma, Ami Bhakti Dao, Vivek Dao, Vairag Dao. The same Kali is Kanyakumari here. Every day she is dressed in a different way. This photo apparently was taken when her face was covered with butter, puja with butter, and later it is scraped out and given as prasad. From there he came out of the temple and looked south. What did he see? The last two bits of rock of Mother India. He was attracted to the rock on the left. That contains the famous Sri Pada Shila, the place where Parvati is supposed to have stood for 100 years and meditated. And she stood for such a long time there until her feet sank into the rock. But if you go there and have a look at her, the impression of her feet, you probably will get an impression that she must have been a giantess. The impressions are so huge. But there is faith. Swamiji wanted to go there. There were fishermen about. Most of the fishermen were Muslims or Christians. They were not Hindus. He asked them, "Can you take me across?" They said, "Do you have money?" Swamiji said, "I have no money. I am a wandering monk." Then they said, "Sorry, no money, no trip." Swamiji was in Kerala. How do men walk about in Kerala wearing dhoti? How do they walk about? Tuck up the dhoti. So what did he do? Tucked up the dhoti, jumped into the waters. He was an expert swimmer. Started swimming, there was a big noise. People started shouting because there were supposed to be sharks. You know, it is a place where three oceans meet. Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea. They meet there. Plenty of sharks. He didn't care. He just swam across, climbed up that rock on the left, went to the top, sat on the summit facing north. Uttaravimukha. 3 days and 3 nights he stayed there meditating. On what? He didn't meditate on Kali. He didn't meditate on Shiva. He did not meditate upon Sri Ramakrishna. He meditated upon Mother India. 2.5 years he had travelled the length and breadth of the country. All the memories came back. What was the contrast he noticed? The rich opulence of the princess and millions of people who did not know where the next meal is going to come from. September 94, when Swamiji was in Chicago or some other place, he wrote a letter to Ramakrishnananda, which gives us an idea of what he was thinking about on that rock. My dear Shashi, we are so many sannyasis wandering the length and breadth of India, trying to bring enlightenment to common people. They are not ready for that. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, poverty and Vedanta don't go together. You can't teach Vedanta to an empty stomach. Why not all of us form a band together? Go from village to village with magic lantern, slideshow, teach the villagers about hygiene, agriculture and modern methods. Think about it. Shashi thought about it, and that was the origin of the Sri Ramakrishna order on the 1st of May 1897, followed a couple of years later by Sri Ramakrishna Mission. That is the job of the mission. Nation building. Do you remember what happened in Uttarakhand, Kedarnath? One of the earliest groups of people to go there was the group from the Ramakrishna Ashrama, Kankhal. Because they are medical people, they set up camps, they brought all the people suffering and they looked after them not only in Kankhal hospital, but they went to this site and rescued a large number of people. Swami Vivekananda's idea. Sannyasis should not abandon the world. because the people are also creations of God. Shiva Jnane Jiver Seva. See the divine in those poor people and serve them. Not help them, serve them. That message he gave to the country when he was thinking on top of the rock. How did he manage for food? Many years later, one gentleman from Nagarkoil came forward. You can find it in the reminiscences of Swamiji. He said that he had seen Swamiji sitting on the rock from a distance. He was curious. He took a boat and went there. Swamiji would not talk to him, sat silently with closed eyes. Then I thought to myself, how will he survive? So from that evening onwards, I started going there in a boat, leaving food for him. In the morning I would go back, collect the old plates and keep fresh plates and fresh food. Sometimes he would have eaten the food, sometimes he would not have touched anything. On the fourth morning when I went there, he had disappeared. Fourth early morning, he came down, swam across, came to the mainland, started his journey towards the north. Almost all the constructive ideas he had in his mind were developed during those 3 days. And it is that place where you have the famous Swami Vivekananda Rock Memorial. Despite all difficulties, Eknath Ranade was able to establish it. It was consecrated by Swami Ranganathananda. Have you been there?
Yes.
Have you seen the Rock Memorial? There was a long time ago when all our wise students used to be taken there to see the Rock Memorial. Huge statue of Swamiji in a hall. And right in front of him, on either side of the entrance, Sri Ramakrishna and Sharda Devi looking at their disciple and blessing him. And outside also it is so calm. And sea breeze. And below, in the basement, a meditation chamber with just Omkara. What is that Omkara? The same thing which you have in our Dhyana Mandira. You remember Dhyana Mandira, that Omkara? This is a replica of that. There you sit there in calmness, peace and meditate. Today, of course, the whole thing has become noisy because it has become a tourist attraction. That place is being maintained by the Vivekananda Kendra. So Swamiji started walking from there to Madurai. He wanted to go to Madurai to see the temple of Meenakshi Sundareshwar. And there he ran into this gentleman, Bhaskara Setupati. Bhaskara Setupati was the prince or king or whatever you may call it of Ramnad. And Ramnad or Ramanathapuram is famous for what? A UNESCO monument. Rameshwaram temple. 1,000-pillared temple. He had come casually to Madurai. His name is Bhaskara Setupati. Bhaskara is his name. Setupati in Sanskrit means the Lord of the bridge. What bridge?
Rama bridge.
Sri Rama's bridge. Sri Rama's bridge has been located underwater by satellite photographs.
Yes.
So Bhaskara invited Swamiji to come to Ramanathapuram. The two of them came there. Swamiji stayed there for some time. Bhaskara Setupati one day told Swamiji, Maharaj, there is a parliament of religions coming up shortly in Chicago. Why don't you attend that? Swamiji said, I have no money. Oh, don't worry. I will finance you. He was the fourth or the fifth king or prince to promise financial assistance to Swamiji. Swamiji said he would think about it. Then he left that place and came to Pondicherry. In Pondicherry, he ran across a Bengali gentleman, Manmathanath Mukherjee, who was the accountant general of the province of Madras, the old province of Madras. Two Bengalis. And when two Bengalis meet, you can't separate them. They are thick like this. Speaking their language, sho, which nobody else will understand. So Manmathanatha asked Swamiji, where are you going? Oh, I want to go to Madras. I want to see Madras. Just like that, casually Madras. He said, come with me. And he took him to Madras. Swamiji stayed with him. How many of you are familiar with Madras? You have seen Madras? Good. You remember the beach road?
Yes.
Yes? On the in the Mylapore area, there is a very famous church,
Yes.
Santhome Church. In front of Santhome Church, there is a road going to Mylapore, Kacheri Road. You start moving along that road. The fourth house to the right was the quarters of Manmathanatha. Swamiji stayed there for 2 months. During the time he was in Madras, he spent almost all the time with him. Every evening he used to go for a walk in the Santhome beach. Today Santhome beach is one of the dirtiest beaches. But in those days, it was a very clean beach. Citizens of Madras who used to come there in the evening were attracted by Swamiji's personality. This was still winter, around February of 1893. One by one they started making inquiries and they started coming to the house of Manmathanatha to meet and talk to Swamiji. One day, a young man came to meet him, Alasinga Perumal, who turned out later to be the right-hand person of Swamiji in Madras, and he was the person who put many of the dreams of Swamiji into reality. Swamiji was ever grateful to Alasinga. The largest number of letters Swamiji wrote in his life, 47, have all been addressed to Alasinga. He had so much faith in Alasinga. Next largest number of letters to the Maharaja of Mysore. They were the two people in whom Swamiji had the highest confidence. One day, 3 young people came from a college in Tambaram, Madras Christian College. It is still there, MCC, Madras Christian College. Incidentally, Alasinga Perumal was the headmaster of Madras Christian College School, the school wing of that. These 3 young people came not so much to learn anything, but to pull the legs of Swamiji. They came and sat in front of Swamiji, went on talking, and asked Swamiji a simple question. Swamiji, can you define God? Can you define God? You give any definition of God, an atheist can probably cut it to pieces. There are certain questions which are called loaded questions. I don't know whether I have told you about this. Even if I told you, don't stop me. There is one very important question which I want to ask all the men. How many of you are married? Only 2. The others keep quiet. It is not for you people. I am going to ask a question only to these people. I don't want a lecture in return. That is my privilege, giving a lecture. I want a yes or no answer. Ready? You be spectators. Don't try to answer. It doesn't concern you. Have you stopped beating your wife? Answer only yes or no. Have you stopped beating your wife? If the answer is yes, what does it mean? I was beating her. If the answer is no, it means I am still beating her. This is called Hobson's choice. Either way, you are the loser. Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead, in their very famous book, Principia Mathematica, give a large number of examples like this. One more example for your entertainment. There is a village There is only one barber. There are lots of men. A rule of the village is every man should every day be clean shaven. And only the barber can shave others. Nobody can shave himself. Do you understand? All the men should be clean shaven. But they must get a shave only from the barber. Who shaves the barber? Who shaves the barber? He is a man of that village. He must be clean shaven every day. He can't shave himself. He can shave only others. So who shaves? The barber. There is no answer, but a clever fellow would give an answer. One of the villagers can shave the barber. But the clause is only the barber can shave others. Nobody else can. There is no solution. There is no solution to this. This is a mathematical fallacy. Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead, they give lots of examples like this. So, Swamiji asked a counter question. You are all students of physics, I am told. Yes, Swamiji. Can you define energy? Have you thought about it? Energy cannot be defined. Your definition of energy is circular always. They tried and tried and tried. Swamiji went on cutting to pieces all their arguments. Then he laughed at them. You are students of physics and you can't define energy. You want me to define for you what is God? I can show you God. Are you prepared to come and join me? The three young fellows sheepishly grinned and went away. Two of them were master students and the third one was an assistant professor. That assistant professor came back next morning and told Swamiji, Swamiji, I want to join your group. Please take me in as a disciple. Swamiji took him as a disciple, Singaravelu Mudaliyar. Swamiji found such a spark of genius in Singaravelu, he gave him a nickname, Kidi. What is Kidi? Kannada and Tamil, a spark from a fire. He is a genius like a spark from a fire. It is this Kidi who later, at the instance of Swamiji, started the first magazine in India dedicated to religion, Hindu religion, Sanatana Dharma, Brahmavadin. Later, Brahmavadin was stopped and it got converted to another magazine, Prabuddha Bharata. Prabuddha Bharata is now being published from Mayavati Hills, Almora, where there is a Ramakrishna order. You are going to see Mayavati Hills later, started by an English couple. And it is more than 100 years old. Prabuddha Bharata. I have published several articles in them. I have reviewed books regularly for Prabuddha Bharata. It is an amazing magazine. Very famous all over the world. What is the meaning of Prabuddha Bharata? Awakened India. Not awakening India. Awakened India, a name given by Swami Vivekananda. Now these people also told Swamiji, you have to go to United States. You have to go to United States. He hesitated. Why did he hesitate? Yes, I don't mind going to United States. Is it to satisfy my ego? Or is it there is a call from above? He told these boys, unless I get a call from above, I cannot go. How to get a call from above? He wrote a letter to Sharada Devi, who was in Kolkata, asking her what he should do. In those days, letters used to take 10 days to go to Kolkata and the reply to come back another 10 days, minimum 3 weeks. Meanwhile, he had received invitation from some Andhra people from Hyderabad, capital of, not Andhra, Andhra did not exist, Hyderabad state, Hyderabad province. So he went there and stayed with some people to whom he had been given the introductory letter, and he stayed there for almost 2 weeks. He met the Nizam of Hyderabad. You know, the Nizams of Hyderabad have always been notorious for their miserly behavior. That Nizam used to give his dress for washing once a week. And imagine, Hyderabad is not a cool place. Of course, that was the winter season. He also met Salar Jung. Have you heard of Salar Jung? No? Haven't you heard of the museum?
Yes.
Salar Jung Museum in Hyderabad? Have you visited that? It is amazing, that museum. There are still 3 rooms containing boxes with a large number of artifacts. There is no place in the museum. And Salar Jung Museum is in the Guinness Book of World Records. For what reason? Every exhibit in the museum was the personal property of one man, Salar Jung, the brother-in-law of Nizam. Salar Jung had an aesthetic sense. He used to send ambassadors around the world. He never left Hyderabad, and they used to procure for him all these artifacts. He would get them here and established that wonderful museum. But I had also heard that in Los Angeles there is another museum, Paul Getty Museum. I don't know whether you have visited Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. When I went there with my relatives, I was under the impression that that also contains the exhibits of only one man, Paul Getty, the oil millionaire. I asked one of the curators. He said, yes sir, till 10 years ago, you are right. We and Salar Jung Museum were the only 2 museums in the world where everything was the personal property of one man. But our committee has in the last 10 years started purchasing artifacts from all around the world. But you are right, Guinness Book of World Records now recognizes only Salar Jung Museum. And Swamiji in a letter says, how I wish Salar Jung were the Nizam. Hyderabad state would have made progress by leaps and bounds. It was not to be. But I was also told by many Hyderabadis that Salar Jung was a tyrant, slave driver. If he had to procure something, it had to be done. He did not care how many people got hurt, how many people died. But the fact is that today it's an extraordinary museum. Swamiji came back, the reply from Sharda Devi had come. The reply was, I had a vision where I saw Sri Ramakrishna on the seashore, walking on the water to the west. You were standing on the seashore, he was calling you from behind. And you decided to follow him. I take it as a sign that you have the permission of Thakur to go to United States. It seems when the letter came to Swamiji, he opened and read it, he jumped up and down with joy. I have the permission of the mother. I have the permission of the mother. He called the boys and told them, go ahead, make all the preparations. The boys went collecting money, and after 2 weeks of great effort, they finally came up with a donation of 500 rupees. To go to US, in those days, 500 was nothing. Of course, don't forget, the 500 of those days was equivalent to 50,000 today. So Swamiji said, maybe it is not the will of the Lord. Just then, somebody remembered the promises made by the Maharaja of Mysore, Raja of Ramanad and others. They shot off letters to them and promises of help came from them. And in the beginning of May 1893, Munshi Jagmohan Lal, the private secretary of the Maharaja of Khetri, came to Chennai, Madras. He told Swamiji, Swamiji, by your blessing, a son has been born to our king. He wants to have the naming ceremony. He wants you to be present to bless the baby. Swamiji said, what can I do? I am getting prepared to go to United States. Tell the Maharaja, on my return, I will come to his palace. Jagmohan Lal sent a cable to Maharaja. Back came the reply, tell Swamiji not to bother about the preparations. I will take care of the entire expenditure. I will take care of everything. Simply ask him to come over here. The Madrasi boys were disappointed because they thought Swamiji is leaving for the west from Madras. Now he had to leave from Bombay, nearest to Rajasthan. So they told Swamiji, please let us know the date on which you are leaving. All of us will come to Bombay to see you off. That was their sense of loyalty. With Munshi Jagmohan Lal, Swamiji went to Khetri. 3 days long, state-wide celebrations, and then 25th of May 1893, Swamiji left Khetri by train to Bombay with Munshi Jagmohan Lal and a blank check from the Maharaja. Ticket had been purchased right up to Chicago. Bookings had been made on the way in hotels. And all the other things had been taken care of. So everything had been done. Swamiji came to Bombay. With whom did he stay? Bihari Das Desai, whom he had met on his way to the south, who was also going with the same ship to United States. Bihari Das Desai and Jagmohan Lal went on a shopping spree. They went on purchasing things for Swamiji until it required 3 big boxes. Swamiji says, I looked at the 3 boxes, thought to myself, here was I wandering the length and breadth of India like this. Now I have to travel like a householder, taking care of 3 huge boxes. But there is a penalty you have to pay if you want to go abroad with full preparation. So, on the 31st of May, 1893, Swamiji boarded the ship and set sail with Bihari Das Desai to United States. The first halt of the ship was Colombo. Today in Sri Lanka, in those days, capital of Ceylon. Passengers were given 1 day off. So Swamiji also got down. He went inland to see Anuradhapura, the ancient capital of the Buddhist empire of Ceylon. Came back. Next morning, the ship started on its journey. Mind you, Colombo and Ceylon were still a part of India. They were a part of the British Empire. The next halt was Penang. Now we become international. In which country is Penang? You have to recollect your world map. Malaysia. Today, in those days, Federated Malay States. No passengers are offloaded, no passengers were taken in. Only food and water were taken in. And the very next day, the ship left for Singapore. Singapore was still a marshy stretch of land. It was not a big town. Swamiji got down in Singapore, went round the settlement, and as a memory of that, today in Barton Road in Singapore, there is a branch of the Ramakrishna Mutt, the famous Ramakrishna Mutt of Singapore. Beautiful place. Landscaping is something superb. From Singapore, the ship came to Hong Kong. Passengers were told that they could either be in the ship to go up to Canton in China or disembark, come by surface to Canton. Swamiji agreed to see a little bit of Hong Kong and China. Now one basic question which arises here is, did Swamiji have a passport and a visa? Today how difficult it is to go to China, let alone the United States, Canada, By the time you get a visa to Canada, you are finished. You have lost all interest. England, oof, very difficult. What about Swamiji? Mind you, he was a citizen of the British Empire. And every citizen of the British Empire required only a document that he or she is a citizen of the British Empire. The whole world was open. No restriction anywhere in the world. Those were the days when you could travel casually. You can just ring up the airlines at 8 o'clock in the night, book a flight by 1 a.m., go straight to the airport and fly off to Canada or US or wherever you want to go. Those were the days. I'll tell you later the experience I had when we were still a part of the Commonwealth. So Swamiji had no problem. He came by train to Canton with a German tourist. What happened in Canton is the theme for tomorrow. Tomorrow we will bring him to Chicago, and tomorrow, by the time we close the class, he would be preparing to give his speech in the Parliament of Religions. That is the syllabus for tomorrow. Bhalo? So we close with the prayer. Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.